Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Something missing. Narayam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mandiret. Thank you. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, unto Srila Prabhupada, the author, and unto unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 12th day of September 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. Chapter 6, Brahma satisfies Lord Shiva. Text number 36. Lingam chatapasabhishtam Bhasmadanda jatajinam Angena sandhya braducha Chandalekam cha bimbratam Lingam chatapasabhishtam Bhasmadanda jatajinam Angena sandhya braducha Chandalekam cha bimbratam Lingam chatapasabhishtam Bhasmadanda jatajinam Angena sandhya braducha Chandalekam cha bimbratam. Lingam chatapasabhishtam Bhasmadanda jatajinam Angena sandhya braducha Chandalekam cha bimbratam. Damodar. Oh no. You want to chant, people? Santosh. Lingam chatapasabhishtam Bhasmadanda jatajinam Angena sandhya braducha Chandalekam cha bimbratam. Lingam chatapasabhishtam Angena Sandhya Bharucha Chandalekang Bimratam Lingang Chatapasabhishtam Bhasmadanda Chatajinam Angena Sandhya Bharucha Chandalekang Bimratam Lingang Chatapasabhishtam Bhasmadanda Chatajinam Angena Sandhya Bharucha Chandalekang Bimratam. Lingam, symptom. Cha, and. Tapasa abhishtam, desired by Shaivite ascetics. Bhasma, ashes. Danda, staff. Chatha, matted hair. Ajinam, antelope skin. Angena, with his body. Sandhya abra, reddish. Rucha, colored. Chandalekam, the crest of a half moon. Cha, and. Bimbratam, bearing. Translation: Lord Shiva was seated on a deer skin and was practicing all forms of austerity. Because his body was smeared with ashes, he looked like an evening cloud. On his hair was the sign of a half moon, a symbolic representation. Purport: Lord Shiva's symptoms of austerity are not exactly those of a Vaishnava. Lord Shiva is certainly the #1 Vaishnava, but he exhibits a feature for a particular class of men who cannot follow the Vaishnava principles. The Shaivites, the devotees of Lord Shiva, generally dress like Lord Shiva, and sometimes they indulge in smoking and taking intoxicants. Such practices are never accepted by the followers of Vaishnava rituals. All right, I'm going to go on. Upavishtam darbhamayam brishyam brahma sanatanam naradaya pravochantam pichate shunvatam satam. He was seated on a straw mattress. He was seated on a straw mat. We're going to have to fix this one. He was seated on a straw mat and speaking to all present, including the great sage Narada, to whom he specifically spoke about the absolute truth. Purport: The Lord was sitting on a mat of straw because such a sitting place is accepted by persons who are practicing austerities to gain understanding of the absolute truth. In this verse it is specifically mentioned that he was speaking to the great sage Narada, a celebrated devotee. Narada was asking Lord Shiva about devotional service, and Shiva, being the topmost Vaishnava, was instructing him. In other words, Lord Shiva and Narada were discussing the knowledge of the Veda, but it is to be understood that the subject matter was devotional service. Another point in this connection is that Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor, and the great sage Narada is the supreme audience. Therefore, the supreme subject matter of Vedic knowledge is bhakti, or devotional service. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, having gotten an extensive description of the atmosphere, idyllic sattvic atmosphere of Kailas Mountain, and then a little bit of description of Lord Shiva, now we're hearing about what he was actually doing. And he was speaking, he was engaged in a discourse. There are other sages in there, specifically and most prominently Narada Muni. And he was speaking. And what is he speaking about? Well, you know, Narada Muni, he's not going to hear anything except devotional service. So Lord Shiva was, in his role as the greatest Vaishnava. By the way, in a previous purport, sure enough, it was a mistake, where it said, Vaishnavanam yata shambhu, Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava. The actual thing that Prabhupada said was Lord Shiva is the perfect Vaishnava, and that has been corrected. We have an old version here. So, Lord Shiva is the perfect Vaishnava, but sometimes it's hard to tell that he is. This is the puzzlement. Because, as we've said many times before, his association is mostly these ghosts and pretas and bhutas and people in the mode of ignorance. And he doesn't have the usual Vaishnav attire. You know, he's dressed in these ashes and he's got the garland of skulls and things. But all of that is a strategy that he uses. He is the greatest of Vaishnavas. In order to give some mercy to those who are otherwise completely outside of the realm of devotional service. And Prabhupada makes it clear in the previous purport that this is not, you know, the kind of things that Shiva does or that some of his followers do is definitely not what Vaishnavas do. He's taking intoxicants and the dress. We have a certain dress that we follow that's different from Shiva. But the essence of the whole thing is that when he speaks, he's speaking here of devotional service. And as this canto goes on, I always remember proofreading this canto, and especially the song of Lord Shiva, where he meets the Prachetas, the sons of King Prachanabarhi, and he gives him this wonderful song. There's a whole chapter called Singing the Song of Lord Shiva, and it's all about meditating on Vishnu and his expansions, and eventually praying to see the wonderful lotus feet of Vishnu. It's all bhakti, pure bhakti. So, and as we know, we've heard several times, Lord Shiva has his own sampradaya of Vaishnavas. So this is one point that we should know, that the preachers of Krishna consciousness oftentimes they'll do things that seem to be a little out of the usual in order to get an audience amongst those who would otherwise be unable to be reached. And Srila Prabhupada did that. Didn't do it, you know, Lord Shiva did, obviously, but he didn't insist at the beginning on the four regular principles. There was no question of initiation, but just his followers, he didn't emphasize that, because he said these people are all immersed in intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, meeting. So he gave them the essential process, and of course the instruction, Bhagavad Gita and things, that would purify them, so that they would come to the point, especially at initiation, where they're ready to follow the principles and be transformed. So that's an important aspect of Prabhupada's preaching. Whereas many of his godbrothers, they never left India. They just rode off, the West. So they're much too fallen. And Bhaktisiddhanta, pushed several of his followers to go to England, and he gave them all kinds of support. They had plenty of money. They had a special book. Wasn't it Sanyal had written that book in very good English. He was like an English teacher, and Bhaktisiddhanta had a big introduction to it, and that was the book that they said, well, this is suitable especially for an English audience, the English there. But with all of that, they couldn't accomplish anything, because they didn't have the vision or frankly, the determination and compassion that Srila Prabhupada had to somehow or other, make some Vaishnavas out of these fallen people who are on the level of many of them as the ghosts and pretas and mode of ignorance that Lord Shiva is consorting with. So this mood is still going on, is to somehow or other, get people to chant, to take prasadam, to come in touch with the Vaishnavas. This is what the Rath Yatra is all about. It's out on the street. Anybody in any condition of life, sees that murti of Lord Jagannath going by. It's said right in the nectar of devotion. They get liberation, they get purified. So this is Lord Chaitanya's movement, understanding that this Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, and that the people in it are highly unregulated and unsuitable for usual yoga practice. Krishna comes, and Lord Chaitanya, and he just chant Hare Krishna, chant and dance, and come and take prasad. So that's an important part of our understanding. If there's no discussion, I'm going to go on. All right. Krit vorau dakshine swavyam parapadmam chajanuni bahum prakoshte shamalam asinam tarka mudreya. His left leg was placed on his right thigh, and his left hand was placed on his left thigh. In his right hand he held Rudraksha beads, sitting in this posture called Virasana. He sat in the Virasana posture and his finger was in the mode of argument. I think it's this one. The sitting posture described herein is called Virasana according to the system of Ashtanga Yoga performances. In the performance of yoga, there are 8 divisions, such as yama and niyama, controlling, following the rules and regulations, then practicing the sitting postures. Again, I'm going to put a note here. See what Prabhupada actually said. Controlling seems a little bit insufficient for niyama. Controlling what? Practicing sitting postures, etc. Besides Virasana, there are other sitting postures such as Padmasana, Siddhasana. Practice of these asanas without elevating oneself to the position of realizing the Supersoul, Vishnu, is not the perfectional stage of yoga. Lord Shiva is called the Yogeshwara, the master of all yogis, and Krishna is also called Yogeshwara, the master of yoga. Yogeshwara indicates that no one can surpass the yoga practice of Lord Shiva, and Yogeshwara indicates that no one can surpass the yogic perfection of Krishna. Another significant word is Tarka Mudra. Who knows what Tarka means besides Ramapati? Tarko Patishta Shuddhi. Argument. Tarka is argument, debate. This indicates that the fingers are opened, and the second finger, this is I guess the first finger, is raised along with the arm to impress the audience with some subject matter. I'm just speculating, I'm not sure exactly. This is actually a symbolic representation. There is a famous picture of Prabhupada in this mood. You see that, where he's actually making a point. Alright, not much there I can speak on. Let's go on. Tam Brahma Nirvana Samadhim Ashratam Vyupashratam Gurisham Yoga Kaksham Salokapala Muniyo Manunam Adyam Manum Pranjalaya Pranemo. All the sages and demigods headed by Indra offered their respectful obeisances unto Lord Shiva with folded hands. Lord Shiva was dressed in saffron garments and absorbed in trance, thus appearing to be the foremost of all sages. In this verse, the word Brahmananda is significant. I think probably means Brahma Nirvana. I'm going to change that. In this verse, the word Brahma Nirvana is significant. This Brahma Nirvana or Brahmananda is explained by Prahlad Maharaj. When one is completely absorbed in the Adhokshaja, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the sense perception of materialistic persons, one is situated in Brahmananda. It is impossible to conceive of the existence, name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is transcendentally situated beyond the conception of materialistic persons. Because materialists cannot imagine or conceive of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they may think that God is dead, but factually he is always existing in his Satchit Ananda Vigraha, his eternal form. Constant meditation concentrated on the form of the Lord is called samadhi, ecstasy or trance. Samadhi means particularly concentrated attention. So one who has achieved the qualification of always meditating on the personality of Godhead is to be understood to be always in trance and enjoying Brahma Nirvana or Brahmananda. Lord Shiva exhibited those symptoms, and therefore it is stated that he was absorbed in Brahmananda. Another significant word is Yoga Kaksham. Yoga Kaksha is the sitting posture in which the left thigh is fixed under one's tightly knotted saffron-colored garment. Also, the words Manunam Adyam are significant here because they mean a philosopher, or one who is thoughtful and can think very nicely. Such a man is called Manu. Lord Shiva is described in this verse as the chief of all thinkers. Lord Shiva, of course, does not engage in useless mental speculation, but as stated in the previous verse, he is always thoughtful regarding how to deliver the demons from their fallen condition of life. It is said that during the advent of Lord Chaitanya, Sadashiva appeared as Dravida Prabhu, and Dravida Prabhu's chief concern was to elevate the fallen conditioned souls to the platform of devotional service to Lord Krishna. Since people were engaged in useless occupations which would continue their material existence, Lord Shiva, in the form of Lord Advaita, appealed to the Supreme Lord to appear as Lord Chaitanya to deliver these illusioned souls. Actually, Lord Chaitanya appeared on the request of Lord Advaita. Similarly, Lord Shiva has a sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya. He is always thinking about the deliverance of the fallen souls as exhibited by Lord Dravida Prabhu. So this has some important concepts here. This idea of Brahma Nirvana. Now you'll find this term in the Bhagavad Gita. It actually appears quite a few times in the 5th chapter, Brahma Nirvana. And Brahma Nirvana probably was also at the end of the 2nd chapter. Is the Brahma Nirvana is there. So Brahma Nirvana is more or less what we call Brahma Bhuta platform. Prabhupada would sometimes describe Nirvana. And Nirvana means finished. Finished. All material life finished. Nirvana. No activities of materialized senses, but everything spiritualized. Something Nirvana means literally finished. That you're in the void. You don't exist anymore. And because you don't exist, you can't feel pain. And that's taken to be spiritual perfection. But we know that that's first of all an illusion. There's no question of annihilating the self. The self is eternal. But if one wants to be in that void condition, one can, it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the discussion with Ramananda Roy, that these Buddhists, and they become a tree or something, where your consciousness is so covered that you're not aware of any pain. You know. But being free of pain is not the same thing as pleasure, being immersed in Ananda. That's an important point. So here, Brahma Nirvana is Prabhupada defines as Brahmananda. Brahmananda. Now what is that Brahmananda? What is that? Ramante yogino anante satyananda chiratmani iti ramapadenasa param brahma vidiyate. So Param Brahma is also known as Rama, because Rama means pleasure. And here it's Ramante Yogino Anante, the actual yogis, the bhakti yogis, perfected bhakti yogis. They enjoy unending happiness. Ramante Yogino Anante, Satyananda, this is actual Ananda, this is actual bliss. Chidatmani, spiritual. Therefore, one of the names of the Absolute Truth is Rama. And we chant many Ramas every day. So that's the goal of the bhaktas. Prabhupada describes in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 10, in relation to the verse Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mama Pashada, where Krishna says, many of those who have given up attachment, fear, and anger and taken shelter of me have become purified by austerity, and they've attained pure love for me. The Bhava Samandata. And in that purport, Prabhupada discusses these different things that we try to give up: raga, bhaya, and krodha. And now each of them is the most prominent reason why a certain class of people don't come to Krishna consciousness. The first one is raga. Raga here means material attachment, basically. And he says, for most people, even the very idea of a spiritual discipline and doing what we're doing, it doesn't even come up. They're just too absorbed in trying to fulfill material desires. So that's the first thing, just general disinterest, lack of faith. Very prominent. Then there's also bhaya. Bhaya is fear. And that's for the impersonalists, the Mayavadis, who understand that the Absolute is something. He's not void, you know, and they realize the bankruptcy of trying to enjoy on the material platform, because that's what will give you birth and death. But they're afraid of getting another body, because they equate having a body with having a material body. And we know the material body is the cause of all suffering. So therefore, the Absolute must have no body. The Absolute, the highest position is to have no senses, no mind, no intelligence, no nothing, except just one's awareness of Brahman, undifferentiated, nirvishesha, without any variegatedness. So this is a mistake. It's throwing out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. We're trying to develop or reawaken our spiritual body, our spiritual form, spiritual personality, with everything we have now, but in a purified form, in relation to Krishna. But the Mayavadis don't accept that. Mayavadi means they say, body means to speak. Everything is Maya, including everything related to Krishna. Anything that has any form, qualities, pastimes, or anything is Maya. That's where they're Mayavadi. So that's the second reason, is Bhaya. And Krodha refers to those who have been cheated so many times by false philosophies that they're angry, frustrated, and Prabhupada said they often take shelter of some kind of intoxication, and take their resultant hallucinations to be spiritual visions. And you had experience with that in Lower East Side. So this frustration, this is the idea, let it all be void. Let me just commit suicide, basically. Spiritual suicide, all kind, and just end it. And that way I'll be happy, no more pain. So those are all cul-de-sacs or false lines to go down, and there are millions of people who've gone down them and are going down. So, but Vaishnavism is not that. We understand that this is a reflection. It's right in the Bhagavad Gita that the reality is similar to what we have here because it's a reflection of the reality, but it's a perverted reflection. And that's explained right at the beginning of the 15th chapter. So we don't want to cut down the tree and just live in a void. We want to go to the real tree. Krishna uses the analogy of the upside-down tree, meaning the spiritual world, the Goloka Vrindavan, where there's where your sense activities and your thoughts don't produce suffering, ultimately, but are simply purified in relation to Krishna, and everything is fine. So that's Brahmananda, Brahmanirvana, explained by Prahlad Maharaj, is to be absorbed in adhokshaja. Now this name is used when the emphasis is on the transcendental nature of the Lord. We've been over this several times. Prabhupada explains, you read that Dharma book we put together. In his lectures on the first verse, Savai Pangsang Paro Dharma Yato Bhaktir Adhokshaja. He uses that name. And Prabhupada explains in one of the lectures he gave, which we included in the book, that this adhokshaja is made of 3 elements: adha, aksha, and ja. Now aksha is the word for eyes, or eye, but here it's a standing in for all the senses. So aksha ja, born, what is born of this sense perception? Material knowledge. This is the scientific method, right? In other words, it's ascending process. We'll observe and make some tentative conclusions, test it out, and we come to and when it all works out, we say, okay, we got this theory about how things are working, and they build an edifice of this kind of knowledge. So, but the word adha means down, means Krishna pushes all this knowledge down. He's transcendental to this knowledge, and that's exactly what transcendental means, beyond the range of material senses and mind. Now, why is that this name used often at the beginning? When someone is beginning devotional service, because the essential element of practicing devotional service with any seriousness is faith, and faith means you have faith in something beyond your immediate perception quality, your ability, and that's necessary to enter into the life of bhakti. That's why it says Adav Shraddha. The beginning is some faith, enough faith to practice bhajana kriya, so that Krishna can from within start to affect and purify your consciousness, give you some realization, and make you more receptive to the message. So, beyond sense perception, a materialistic person, he's situated in Brahmananda. So this is Shiva. He's always in that state, in this samadhi state, experiencing this Brahmananda. It's impossible to conceive of, with our material mind and senses, the existence of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord, because he's transcendently situated. So then those who cannot perceive, but they speculate and they say, oh, God is dead, or God is this, God is that, and so this is useless. So constant meditation on the form of the Lord is samadhi. So this is, he's enjoying Brahmananda just by thinking of Krishna. That's Brahmananda. This is why there's one of the rasas is Shanta ras. Shanta ras is sometimes not even placed within bhakti because there's no service. But what is the essential nature of Shanta ras is there in all the other rasas. You know how it is, like they're all like Dasya and Shanta are present in Sakya, and then it goes up. So what is Shanta ras? Shanta ras is described in Madhya Lila very nicely. Is complete absorption in thought of Krishna, not a tinge of desire for sense gratification, and experiencing the bliss of just being Krishna conscious. That itself is blissful. This is Brahmananda. There may not be any active service, you see. And that Shanta ras, there are elements even in the spiritual world, it's like waiting for Krishna. like the grass. They're not engaged in any active service, but when Krishna walks on them, they're ecstatic. They're ecstatic waiting for Krishna, thinking, when is he going to walk on me? And then when he actually does, that's special, and then they're waiting another day. That's kind of Shanta, they're waiting. So, but when the soul is engaged in some active service, dasya-ras, the same quality is there. Absorption and thinking of Krishna. This is the highest levels, no tinge of sense gratification. And, but adding this sense of dasya-ras, this experiencing of the joy of serving Krishna actively. And you need a form for that, so there's, so it goes on like that. But his Shiva is in this Shantaras, more or less, in this case. He's meditating totally, fully on the Lord, experiencing bliss. And then he mentions about the posture. But Shiva, he's the greatest Vaishnava, and as soon as you get to the higher levels of Vaishnava, the impetus to preach has to be there. This is the perfectly demonstrated by Prahlad. He has no problem. He's been, from birth, he's absorbed in thinking of Krishna, Govinda, and nothing can perturb him. Even his father's depredations couldn't perturb him. And so then he has his prayers, and he reveals his mind. This is so wonderful when the prayers come out; they reveal their mind. And one of the most famous is this Naivod Vijay, Paradaratya Vaitaranyas Tradviya Gayana Mahamant among the Chitta. That I have no trouble. I have not udvijay. I'm not disturbed in the least. I haven't been disturbed. I'm not disturbed now, because I've already crossed the ocean of birth and death. This Vaitarani river, where you are, my Lord. He's speaking directly to Lord Nrsimha. Naivod Vijay Paradoratya. Very difficult to cross, to get all across this river of birth and death. But I'm crossed it because I'm with your lotus feet, and you're totally across. Vaitaranyas. How do I maintain myself in that position? Tradviya Gayana Mahamata among the Chitta. At any time, at all times, I can chant your powerful glories, Virya, which are Mahamrita, which is that great ocean of nectar, and I'm immersing in it, drowning in it. Magna Chitta, my consciousness is drowned in chanting and hearing your glories. So how can I feel any problem? There's no problem for me. But then the next line, he really reveals the heart of a Vaishnava. Shoche tato, but I'm lamenting. What happens lamenting? You're supposed to be beyond lament. But no, vimukha chetasa, I'm lamenting for these fools and rascals who've turned their face away from you. And therefore, in the artha, they are looking for something for sense gratification. And trying to enjoy maya sukhaya. Now the main thing about maya sukhaya, as opposed to real sukhaya, is that it's flickering. It has a beginning and an end. And so you aspire for it, you may experience a little of it, but then it's gone, and it leaves you with lamentation and kankchati and chochati. So this is the platform of the fools. Maya sukhaya bonam udvahato vimudhan. So he calls them vimudhas. Not just mudhas, but vimudhas. Really foolish souls. And so then, and the word bharam is important. Every word is important. They're bearing the burden, life after life, of living in this mood of trying to enjoy the senses. It's such a burden. First of all, you have the burden of this material body. And then the burden of making all those efforts to enjoy, and oftentimes you're simply in pain and suffering, and there's no question of enjoyment, because that's the nature of the material world. And so he's saying, that's my lamentation, and I'm going to do something about it. The next verse he describes the mukti kamis, they're lusty after their own material, their own liberation. To just be desiring relief from misery is not in itself spiritual. Although that impetus is important to enter into the whole realm of even thinking about spiritual life. That's why mukti is such a prominent thing. The Mayavadis, the impersonators, that's what they want. That's all they want. That's why Prayana Deva, for the most part, Prayana Deva Munayo Swava Mukti Kama. These munis and wise men who know, how crazy it is to try for sense gratification, they really want to get out of this world of suffering and experiencing some kind of Brahmananda, the bliss of Brahman. So what do? They leave the people behind. Go ahead and rot in your cities here. I'm going off into the forest in the Himalayas, get my liberation. So therefore he calls it Vimukti Mukti Kami Maunam Charanti Vijane Napararta Nishta. Very nice phrase. Pararta Nishta is determination to help others. And these are Napararta Nishta. They have no determination to help others. This is not the heart of a Vaishnava. So Maunam, they wander silently in Vijane, where there's no people, in secluded places, having absolutely no empathy and sympathy for this. But I'm not like that. He said, Nayanam vihaya kripana vimamukshe. I'm not giving up these kripanas, these wretches, and just vimamukshe eko, looking for my soul liberation. Because nanyam tvadasi sharanam brahmato anupashe. I don't see anyone but you, my Lord, who can save them. In other words, I have to give them you. I have to be the medium. Prabhupada called vaya medium. I have to be the medium by which they can, you are reaching out to them. This is, you see, this is the idea, is that Krishna is always merciful, compassionate in all of his forms, and he comes down, he reaches out to the fallen benighted souls. Otherwise there's no hope. Either directly he comes, which is very rare, or he reaches out through his books, through his representatives, through his murti, through his holy name, you know, something that we can perceive in our benighted state, in our covered state. That's the whole idea. If he just stays up here in the transcendental realm or hidden in the heart, and you never see, there's nobody representing him, and there's no books and everything, we're doomed. We're hopeless. But Krishna's not like that. So Prahlada says, I will be the emissary. This is the real heart of a Vaishnava. And Shiva does the same thing. He's sitting here, and it's in the material world, in the Himalayas, and he's giving access to these, you know, fools and rascals, these ghosts and pretas and whatever, you know, mostly. But also to many others. He's appearing here, just as Prabhupada said so wonderfully in the first canto about Narada Muni. Narada Muni, who has so kindly agreed to appear here in the pages of the Bhagavatam. Oh, so kind. So when we read about Shiva, we can get Shiva's association here. And most important, to hear his words, which is coming up in a few chapters. This wonderful song of Shiva. You know, this is how we should relate to Shiva. We're not going to go to Shiva to pray for something material, but we can pray to him for bhakti. You know, this is, you know, because he's the greatest Vaishnava. All right, any discussion on these points? Yes, Mukunda. Oh, yes, we have that. We should try to do that. Have mercy on the souls in the internet world.
In text 36, in the purport, well, it's not so important, but this word Shaivite,
yeah,
it's not italicized, but it has a diacritic over the S, but it's like a mixture. It's like, if you just pronounce it according to diacritic, it'd be like Shaivite, which isn't the word. So does the word Shaivite even exist, or is it just our word that we use?
No, it's not our word. This is a word that has come to be used to describe followers of Shiva. I don't remember if I found it in a dictionary, but it's definitely something that was used in, you know, books about Vedic culture and things like that.
But it's not a word in any. I couldn't find it in any shlokas like the word Shaivite.
No, it's not. It's not a Sanskrit word. It is.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
It's
like a scholar.
Yeah, it's a kind of. It probably developed during the British Raj.
Yeah.
You know, like that.
Okay.
Even I've seen Vaishnavite. You know, you see that occasionally too.
Right.
You know, this kind of there's a certain process going on of, you know, these words, and the dictionaries change. I mean, I was shocked. You know, I used to have one of those. I don't know, maybe before your time, one of those big unabridged dictionaries. Physically, you know, the thing weighed about 30 pounds. I need it for my work, and I remember looking up the word Kshatriya. You know, it wasn't in a regular abridged dictionary. But there it was in you know, with a KSH, you know, anglicized spelling, because it entered in to the unabridged dictionary from the English. So those words are, there's a whole list. You might be interested. So anyone could be interested. We have a BBT style guide where all these things, you know, what words should be italicized, what should maintain their diacritics. Like we have a certain standard, because the word ashram is definitely in the dictionary. Before we, you know, probably started ASHRAM. There's no italics or anything. But in our books, we maintain the italics. But at a certain point, we drop the italics, like the word yogi. You know, we keep the diacritic, but in the popular books, in Prabhupada's books, it'll stay because it's always been that way. But in Back to Godhead, for instance, it'll appear, it's supposed to, with Y-O-G-I, without the italics, but the diacritic. You know, to keep that so that people know how to pronounce it. Yeah, in Back to Godhead, which is more current, you know, popular. So these things are going on.
So we call ourselves Vaishnavas and not Vaishnavites.
Vaishnavites,
But
right.
then, so do Shaivites call themselves?
I don't know. Do you know?
So it's not like Vaishnavas, we all lump ourselves into Vaishnavas, but it's not like Shaivites, they all call themselves all one thing.
You know, I haven't hung out with many Shaivites. I'm not sure what they call them in the West. I mean, what do they call themselves in India? You know, I'm not sure.
Okay, just wondering. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah, yeah, good idea. Thank you.
So in ISKCON, we have this idea that when you're a Paramahamsa, you don't realize you're a Paramahamsa. You think you're, the most fallen being in all of existence. But as far as I can tell, that's not exactly accurate. And Prahlad Maharaj just declared in the Sanskrit, the Bhagavatam, that he's basically a Paramahamsa, and he's covered, he's good, he's got everything going on, but he's worried about everybody else who are not Paramahamsas like him. Also, Prabhupada numerous times just matter-of-factly stated, yeah, I'm a pure devotee, and I'm trying to help you guys become pure devotees too.
Well, he would usually say it directly, but it was obvious. He was talking about himself.
Yeah, on numerous occasions, just direct. Well, I mean, he would directly, I've seen quotes where he directly said, yeah, I'm basically a pure devotee.
Well, I'm not sure of the premise that you started out with, that the Paramahamsa doesn't know he's a Paramahamsa. Within that understanding, there's often these very great expressions of humility, that I'm the foremost fallen and so
like
forth.
Like Krishnadas Kaviraj's famous example.
But I think that's something that they actually feel, but at the same time they're aware of their position. I mean, somebody's aware of their own, especially rasa in relation to Krishna and so forth. So it's not as I understand what you're saying, but I think that in different contexts they'll express it in different ways.
Yeah, Hridayananda Maharaj explains it as kind of like the whole I'm lower than a worm in stool. That's kind of like an ecstatic bhava they might go into temporarily, like, oh, I'm so fallen, everybody else is fit to be my spiritual master. But that's just kind of like an ecstatic mood. They just, because the waves of ecstasy are tossing them all over the place in different ecstasies and different moods. And
well, this reminds me of, you remember that scene with Madhavendra Puri passing away, where his disciple Ramchandra Puri completely misconstrued, because he has this verse, this famous verse. Everyone can learn it. I dina dayardhanata he mataranata kadave loki say, oh my Lord, oh Master of Mathura, when will I see you again? Am I not seeing you? My heart is very disturbed, and all this stuff. And so Ramchandra said, well, you should be completely peaceful and in Brahman, like he kicked him out. He said, if I see you when I leave my body, I don't know what's my destination. So that was Madhavendra Puri expressing, this highest bhava, but to some it looked like material distress. And that legion with Lord Chaitanya, where he would, be absolutely in agony. He's scratching his face against the wall in the Gambhira, and blood is flowing, and he's crying and everything. So what kind of spiritual life is this? Well, it's a super high ecstasy, where he's saying, he would say, I remember reading this back in, when was it, 75, 76, we were editing the second chapter of the Madhya Lila. And in that chapter, Krishnadas Kaviraj is having some kind of health crisis. He even writes in there, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish, so I'm giving you a little bit of the Anti Lila right here. So here's the Anti Lila in the middle of Madhya Lila. And there was Lord Chaitanya saying, I forget the verse now, I memorized it once, said, I have no love for Krishna. If I had any love for Krishna, how could I keep my life? I'm just faking it, Now, I'm just faking it. It's just a show, And he said, well, what is this, So really, unless you understand the whole context, or you really you can get very much, confused by that. And at the time, people were confused.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Minikaitana, I think it was Minikaitana Ram Das, he walked into a location, and the people in that location failed to bow down to him, and he became very upset. Not because they failed to offer him respect, but because he was a bona fide disciple of Lord Nityananda. Therefore, he took it as an offense. But they failed to bow down to him, and he saw that as a severe discrepancy. And he became very upset. But another question you would maybe be able to shed light on this. So Vishnu, that is Vishva and Anu. So literally, Vishva is like all-pervading, and Anu is atom. So literally, he's in every atom. That's what the name means.
Oh, you know, I never heard of that. I know Vishnu means all-pervading, but is that there's derivation like that? Yeah. Vishnu is definitely the word Vishnu means all-pervading. But I've never seen that before. I'd like to see that analysis because there may be something good.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Is Vishva is like all-pervading, or Vishva can mean the universe too, right? The term Vishva.
Definitely, Vishwamurti, sure.
And then Anu is atom.
Yes, it is, and so the combination, becomes Vishnu. Could be. You must have seen it somewhere. I want to see it.
I know. I wish I could give you a reference.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that. I'm sorry?
I just had a small comment.
Go ahead. Just speak into the mic.
When you were... It's just kind of confirmation of what you had said.
Close
of what you had said. Kind of confirmation of what you had said about people having a general disinterest in spiritual life or God or anything. I remember when I was living back in Arizona, I was at work, and I was kind of talking to my coworker about spiritual life, and granted I was a kind of a new agey person at the time, but yeah, she was asking me about it, and then I had asked her, "Oh, do you have any spiritual or religious beliefs?" And she was like, "No, I don't ever think about stuff like that." And I was just kind of shocked. I was like, well, "What the heck do you think about all day?" So it was just so I guess it's kind of related to Krishna as adhokshaja, beyond the material sense perception. There are people who can't even approach him by even thinking of God.
If you look at Prabhupada's preaching, especially in the early days when he's always preaching to new people, things changed a little when he went to India. It's a whole different, But the early days, he's just trying to impress people of the importance of looking into the question of, birth, old age, disease, and death. Reminding people that this is what material life is inevitably full of. And getting them to be curious about, this process, even if they don't believe it yet, at least be curious of this ancient process, tried and true, that can deal with these ultimate questions. First of all, who are you? Spirit, not matter, that whole thing. But you're absolutely, that experience is legion. I mean, we don't, I'm surprised. A lot of times, I travel and people say, well, what are you all about? Because they never heard of us. You would think after 50 years, Hare Krishna, But these people are, they're into their own thing, and they haven't been exposed, and that's our fault. But it's that's what Kali Yuga is all about. Is that there's a smaller percentage in other yugas of people who even poke their nose outside of the whole material, maelstrom. I mean, Sukadev describes at the beginning, Shorta Vyade Niraja enough. For those who are not interested in hearing this subject matter, there are millions of subject matters available. And with material, saturated with the modes of nature, that keep you, in ignorance. Even if you're a big philosopher and this and that, it could be totally atheistic. So it's by great fortune that someone comes in touch with the philosophy and a representative of the philosophy who can plant in one's heart at least the interest to continue investigating. And that was Prabhupada's greatest gift. He planted so many seeds of faith, and he gave the process and the means by which you could follow that faith and actually advance. So it's our responsibility to carry that forward and try to keep planting those seeds. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.